Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harris and I read, review and discuss fantasy and science fiction books. Today we are talking about chapter 55 of volume 1 of The Wandering Inn. So, number one, apologies for this video being a week late. So, as many of you may have seen, last week I welcomed a new member of the family. My daughter was born a couple of weeks early. Both mum and daughter extremely healthy, absolutely no issues. She is asleep in the room next door to me. But that meant that last week was a bit hectic because of having spent a couple of days in the hospital. All for free, thank you NHS. And unfortunately, that meant that I just didn't have time to read this behemoth of a chapter and make my usual weekly video. We are now back to the weekly release cadence. I had talked previously in the past about wanting to do like a whole week of binge of The Wandering Inn, so it would be like four videos in a week of Wandering Inn, and the intention was so that I could wrap up volume 1 and move on to volume 2, because volume 2 is available and I've already purchased as an ebook and audiobook. So that would make it a lot more convenient for me, because I'd be able to listen to the audiobook while doing things like hanging out with my newborn baby daughter, taking her out for a walk or something, or going for a run myself, doing household chores. All these things that are currently times that are filled with other audiobooks could then be filled with The Wandering Inn, which would make life a lot easier. Which is why I was kind of speeding forward. Anyway, that's still currently the plan. I don't know when that week of Wandering Inn is going to be. It may end up that I do the videos, do the reading and do the videos, but don't release them all in a week. I just catch up to The Wandering Inn and then slowly release the videos over time. So absolutely who knows how I'm going to be able to do this, but thank you so much for your patience on this one. I did receive a load of lovely comments from Wandering Inn fans on the post where I said, you know, my daughter's been born and stuff, and that was really, really nice. But now my present to you guys is talking about this long ass chapter. So I have read this over the last couple of days because being a new parent, you don't have a lot of sit down and do stuff time, and my sit down and do stuff time is often making videos. But I managed to get this read mostly yesterday evening. I think I read like the first like 10 or 20% on Monday, and then a little bit more yesterday morning, and then just finished the whole chapter off and read the whole thing in one big sesh last night. This is a great chapter. So where are we when we hit this? So this is our first Ryoka chapter in a while, since the very short one which followed directly on from her basically lashing out and trying to beat up all of her friends. And we reach Ryoka in on her way to Liscor. So she's been sent to Liscor by the dragon, whose name Teriarch. We were calling him Terry the dragon. So Terry the dragon sent her to Liscor to get, I believe that we actually know that she's taking something to Azkarash, or whatever his name is, the old necromancer, which I've been assuming for a long time has been at the bottom of the ruin. But I can't remember whether that's actually something we know, or whether that's just my prevailing theory, and so in my brain that's canon. Anyway, I mean, him being at the bottom of the ruin is my theory, but whether we know that, you guys get the gist. So let's get right into things. So first off, we start with a new character. So the POV is actually not Ryoka as it starts up. It's with a woman by the name of Isara, I believe. Let's double check, because that name is going to come up a lot of times today, and I feel like this character is probably important to have had so much focus in this rewritten chapter. Come on, tell me names. Ysara, yeah. So Ysara, so Ysara. I'm going to say Ysara. And that's how I would be writing Ysara if I wanted to call a character that. Anyway, well, maybe no. Okay, we're going with Ysara. So she's a merchant, but she used to be an adventurer, and her brother is a knight, and she is distantly related to a noble family from the north. And she is called the Silver Merchant. So like Ghazi has her own fun nickname, she also has a fun nickname, and it's because she deals in silver, and she's a very high level and successful merchant. She's known. So she's called the Silver Merchant. She deals predictably in silverware, it says. So she has things like alchemical items, silverware, silver weapons, and she herself uses a silver sword, and the sword is an alloy of silver and something else, which makes it like a pretty cool sword. And it's like something she's inherited from her family, I think. I don't know if she says specifically which family she's related to. I don't think that she is related to the Reinhardt family, but I could find out. So she's with a merchant caravan that has a ton of other merchants and guards, and they are going around the Bloodfields to get to Liscor. We get a little bit of explanation about what the Bloodfields are, which is basically like a designated place for armies to fight, so that they don't take out as many of the civilians. The interesting thing about this is that it kind of makes army some of this stuff like a bit more tactically redundant, because you can't do things like raids and you can't disrupt supply lines in that sort of way. So it's interesting. Both this series and Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive have these pre-arranged fighting areas. So the Stormlight Archive has the Shattered Plains, and here we have the Bloodfields. The Bloodfield sounds like a really interesting place to have your fight, and I don't know why people would agree to do it, but I guess it's rich people who are agreeing, and common people just have to die in them. So there you go. So yeah, it says here the Bloodfields are extremely dangerous. We find out about that in detail later, but it says so the Bloodfields are so dangerous the army sometimes lost more soldiers to the Bloodfields than their engagements. I've got to stay hydrated. I have a really bad cough, which is half the reason for my husky voice. The other half is that I'm trying to be quiet for my sleeping family. So yeah, there's some stuff going on in the Bloodfields. She says her family is not one of the 5 families, but her family is in Liscor, apparently, because she's going to visit them, and she says it's been 5 years or something. So yeah, interesting. Yeah, as a child, Ysara had been told she had a once in 1,000 years talent with a blade. So interesting to find this. I feel like Ysara is an extremely interesting character that we see very little of. She's described as having purple hair, which is pretty cool, or indigo hair. And then we move on, and there's more stuff going on with Bluelith, and she's saying there's loads of stuff going on in Liscor at the moment. That's why a lot of people are heading there. Oh, here we go. So thingy. So she might be distantly related to Magnolia, because she's saying that her brother is gold rank and her sister is silver, and they're both adventurers, and whatever her name is, the woman Yvonne, she's a silver rank and her brother is a gold rank adventurer. So I feel like Pirate wouldn't put that specific combo in that specific order unless they were actually part of that same noble family. Does that make sense? And then so she talks about how she's been beating the guards in duels, Duel, not Jewel, and that everyone feels safer because she's around. There's also let's have a look. There's gnolls around, and they see some gnolls, and then they notice Ryoka running through the Bloodfields, and she's running directly through the middle, which is an absolute no-go, even in the time of year that it is, which is when the Bloodfields are mostly dormant. People go around the edge because of how dangerous they are. And so she's running, she's hating herself, she's talking about, oh yeah, here we go, find Necromancer, find Azkarash, deliver the letter. So yes, we did know that it was Azkarash. So she's got this task, she knows she's been put under a spell. I've got some lovely flavour text here in purple. Then, so she's, a lot of the early parts of this book, this chapter is Ryoka kind of going through her like self-hatred, working through her emotions, talking about how the kind of pushing away of the people who wanted to be her friend is a constant theme, and the aggression and the anger. She talks about throwing a chair at her therapist. She talks about all the people that made her angry. She then kind of goes through like, oh, you know, it was my fault. It's always been my fault. And Isara's like, well, Isara's like shouting at her and is like, no, please don't go into the Bloodfields, don't go into the Bloodfields. But Ryoka's listening to her music on her iPhone, and eventually she hears her and like stops, and Isara is kind of talking to her. She has to use a horse to catch up to her, and she's talking to her, and she's like, oh, you can't go into the Bloodfields, blah blah blah. She talks about how it's a death zone, and then Ryoka's okay, thanks for letting me know, and then tries to run through, and like Isara's like, no, you can't go into the Bloodfields, you'll die. And she's like, oh, whatever, I've already been through the high passes. They introduce to themselves, they talk to each other, and at some point Ryoka's like, this is the gayest person that I've seen in world. And that's quite funny because it makes sense. Like, she's got like a neck tattoo and a cool earring, and she's got dyed purple hair, indigo hair. Then Ghazi turns up and she stops Ryoka from running off because she's, you know, super powerful or whatever, and she comes back, and it feels like Ghazi is here like trying to take on Ryoka, trying to kidnap Ryoka for the same reason she is trying to get Erin. And then some gnolls turn up and they're like, look, we can't stop you, Ghazi. Ghazi's like, oh, like, I'm taking this girl. And they're like, oh, we've been told to take this girl. And then Ghazi's like, well, look, I will kill you all. And then where are we? The gnolls are like, okay, well, we can't fight you. We'll all die because you're too powerful. But there's gnolls everywhere here, and it's about to be the gnoll tribal council or whatever, and we will tell everyone what you've done. So like, don't wake a sleeping giant, basically, is what they're talking about. Kershia gets a reference, she's talked about. And then Isara's like, oh, what are you doing? Like, some interesting chat between Isara and And yeah, interesting chat between Isara and Ryoka, where she's kind of like consoling her and being like, look, you know, I don't fit in either. And some interesting stuff. And then out of nowhere, Ghazi starts killing the gnolls. And they start, you know, firing arrows and all this jazz. And then, where are we? Then, Ryoka tries to convince... Isara even tries to convince Ryoka to come with her. And then Isara's like, oh, you know, Isara's trying to convince Ryoka to go with her, and Ryoka is like having none of it, basically. So we've got there's a lot of stuff going on here. There's a lot of really interesting interpersonal dialogue between Isara and Ryoka, and I feel like it's one of the most interesting dialogues we've had with this character, because a lot of the interesting stuff going on with Ryoka is kind of internal, but the conversation that they have is quite good. Where are we? And she wants to go. That's the thing. She kind of feels like she does want to go with Isara, but she has this compulsion from Terry the Dragon, and she has to do all these things, and she wants to, you know, she wants to stay with Isara, but she kind of has to go through and go and do the thing, and it's, you know, the magic is becoming more and more and more of a compulsion, and she's kind of trying to fight it, but she ends up running and running and running, and then she decides to run away from Isara, and she gets hit by a crossbow bolt. And at this point, I'm like, oh my god, like, did Isara and her group like shoot a crossbow at her? And then 3 other people turn up with crossbows, and it turns out that these people eventually are revealed to be Claudel, Tariska, and Persua. So they all start going like, oh, let's kill her, blah, blah, blah. And they know, they're all referring to each other by name. So even though they're wearing masks, like Ryoka's like, oh, this Persua, Claudel, and Tariska. And nobody is on board with trying to kill Ryoka. Like, they're being forced into it by pressure from Persua, but I get the feeling that Claudel and Tariska have realised that Persua has got a screw loose and is obsessed with beating and now killing Ryoka, and they already know that they've made a mistake basically by joining up with Persua, but they kind of can't do anything else. And Persua's like, oh, I'll make sure you die if it's the last thing I do. Ryoka's taken everything from me. This is all her fault. And Ryoka runs into the Bloodfields to try and escape them, but they chase her. One of the things with the Bloodfields is that the grass is like sharp, razor sharp, and is cutting the bottom of Ryoka's feet. Maybe she should wear some soles. You don't need to have thick, bouncy soles to be running effectively barefoot, FYI. Let me talk to you about the brand of shoes that I enjoy, Vivo Barefoot. They're chasing her, and they're trying to cut her hamstrings, and they're all using skills, but obviously Ryoka refuses skills, so she's not doing that. And but she's they're talking about how she is definitively like a faster runner than all of them, even with no levels and no skills, which is very interesting. She's still getting the compulsion from the hypnotism from Terry, the spell even, I guess. There is there's some good internal dialogue from the kind of different voices in her head that all kind of represent her different feelings and emotions. Then there's more. Then Perseus starts using wands, and then Ryoka starts using her wand, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, it's a gold rank wand!" And Ryoka starts just firing off fireballs. She's just firing them off willy nilly, and she starts to warm up the area. And the reason why the blood fields are dormant is because it's cold. So when she warms it up, things start coming out, and the horrors of the blood fields become apparent, essentially. So they've got all of the different monsters start coming out of the woodwork. Isara is coming in, and she's coming in to help Ryoka. And the Watcher trees, which I think we've seen before, are now alive, and they're trying to kill everyone. Isara's like, all of you need to abandon the merchants' wagons and run. There's no way we will survive if we don't run now. So Tariska is just killed. She's killed by one of those Watcher trees. It like impales her, and then Claudel is brought down by like a cloud of insects or whatever, and Perseus manages to escape. Classic. But I think she's probably one of the most hated villains in this volume of The Wandering Inn. Is she the only villain? I think she might be the only like out and out villain. I mean, obviously nobody likes Magnolia, and I do still think there's something going on with Kershia. Ghazi, I guess, is a villain. There's lots of characters. Oh, Kissenbeer, he sucks. There's lots of characters with unclear motivations that seem to not be parallel with our lead characters. But Perseus seems like the most out and out villainous character. Perseus basically leaves everyone to die. She pushes Tariska into like a cloud of monsters, and then she dies. The Watcher tree obviously like absolutely skewers her. Claudel basically dies, and then Ryoka and Isara manage to escape. Although Isara loses her silver sword, which was like a cool heirloom with a dragon on it. Then she finds out that Claudel, she's like, oh, Claudel might survive for a while if he has healing potions on him, but he won't want to because he's being eaten alive by these bugs. And Ryoka is like, right, I'm going to go save him then. I think he can be saved. So she actually ends up running in, and everyone tries to stop her, but she runs back in, and she carries Claudel out. And they like top him up with, what's it? She tops him up with the healing potions, and he manages to survive, which is pretty cool, though she might not want to survive. And then, so this is interesting, right, guys? So I'm not going to be able to reread this whole chapter, but I'm not 100% sure what Ryoka is doing here. I'm pretty certain she's running to Liscor at the end. Ryoka, she's free to Liscor. Yeah, so she's running to Liscor. And it seems like Isara is now no longer going to Liscor because she doesn't have any goods to trade. So she kind of goes in the opposite direction, and she's like, oh, I want to see you again. Look me up, I'm famous. And Ryoka's like, okay. And she starts running, and she goes, and Ryoka's on her way to Liscor, and that's kind of how we leave it. Have another drink. Oof, this has been a long video, but this is the longest chapter ever of The Wandering Inn, so kind of makes sense that this video is a long one. I apologise for the overall lack of voice. This cough is obviously, when you talk solidly and this is the second video I've recorded, when you talk solidly for like 45 minutes, it isn't great for your voice. But we're moving on. So this was a really good chapter. It had fantastic action. It had some really, really good character moments for Ryoka. I still don't love like what's going on with her, and I want to see more Ryoka so that I can get to know her more, or maybe not get to know her more, it's the wrong term. I want to see where the story is going, and I want to see if this story redeems her character eventually. And I feel like it might do, because it didn't seem like her character was massively in need of redemption in the beginning, and then we had that horrible chapter. And I really loved her relationship with Isara. Thought that was fantastic. Want those two characters to hang out, fall in love, get married, whatever they want to do, really. And then there's a point where she says that she likes Kalraz as well, which is interesting, because it's like, oh, maybe she likes him in a romantic way. That would be fun, because obviously Kalraz likes her that way. What else in this one? The Bloodfields are pretty horrible, and we've had some little kind of foreshadowing about them earlier in the series, but here is where they kind of come into the fore. Great stuff in there. I assume that we will revisit them because so much work was put into them. Maybe there will be some big battles there eventually. One final note is Persua does seem a little one note at this point. Interesting to see if anything further in terms of development for her character happens, or whether she just stays at this like kind of screw loose, kind of snapped emotionally sort of stage. I don't know how interesting that is to me personally, but whatever. Yeah, good chapter this week. Really looking forward to finishing this volume, as I would imagine there's some really good stuff coming up. Somebody in the comments previously was like, when you get to this chapter, you'll want to binge read the rest, so make sure you plan to do that. I can't remember what chapter they said. So if you are watching this video, please let me know. Also, reminder, I am reading the rewrite. So I think they said a chapter referenced H, and I don't think there is one of those. So yeah, I guess we will find out when we get to it, because there'll probably be, I'll read the end of a chapter and be like, oh, I've got to read the next one. The next one is an Eren chapter. It is, thankfully, I would say about a quarter of the length of that 20,000 word chapter. I don't actually know how many words it is. We're looking that up now. Word count, wandering in, word. Here we go. So obviously this website is not accurate, I have been told. Oh, there's H's on this for 157 onwards. So we've got 157, 8, 9, and then 60, 61, 62, 63. So those are the ones that I need to read as a binge. So I can read the next chapter by itself, then the rest will be a binge. I will probably, looking at the length of these chapters, put these in place of reading a single book on my TBR at some point over the next week or two. And yeah, so that would leave me with, so currently we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 chapters left to finish this volume, which is very exciting. Seeing as we started in November last year, pretty cool that we've almost finished. Thanks so much for coming on for the ride with me. Let's not talk any more about organisation stuff, because I have absolutely no idea how life is going to get more difficult over the next few weeks as my little one starts to wake up a little bit more and be a little bit more present and not just sleep all day, which has enabled me to get a lot of these videos done. So yeah, who knows? But I am going to hopefully get a lot of stuff done in the near future, so that we can continue to run this series at the very least. What is next? So next week, as I said, chapter 56, Eren POV, pretty exciting. If you have, yeah, I think that's everything. So if you like this video, give it a like. And please do drop in the comments down below and chat with me about the Wandering Inn up to this point. If you've got some answers to the questions that I have posed in this video, please let me know. I do apologise. I know I got a couple of events in this chapter slightly out of order, but it was because I read this chapter last night and then realised it was too late to film the video because I had to be up early this morning. So unfortunately, my memory is not as clear as usual, because usually I literally read the chapter and record it straight away. But my memory is not as clear. I did a bit of kind of skim reading as we scrolled through, but with a 20,000 word chapter, it's not going to be perfect. So I apologise if I've missed anything. And please drop down in the comments to let me know if there's anything super important that I missed. I did read it, but it'd be great for people who are watching this series of videos to be able to see anything that I didn't call out directly. Please also subscribe to the channel. Every little subscription helps, and the more people that subscribe to videos from the Wandering Inn, the more kind of priority I give them in my readings time. So like I said, if you are enjoying this series, please subscribe while watching one of these videos, and that will let me know that the people who subscribe to the channel are interested in these videos and you're not just, you know. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.